Hey YouTube, welcome back. There's a scrap head here. This isn't my head. I'm faffing about with valve removal and also reinstallation methods. I won't be putting the valves back in this video, but I am just practicing how to take them out and how to put them back in. Looking at different methods and then realizing that I don't like any of them, so I'm coming up with my own. So let's have a look at the engine in its upside down format and where we've got to at the moment. So I've had all this apart. I've had the timing cover off. I've had the sump sandwich plate, I think that's what it's called, and the sump off. I put it all back together because, as I always say, I don't know what I'm doing. These are not instructional videos. I'm making it up as I go along and exploring and kind of learning. So then what I like to do is put it all back together and then do a video record for myself and also just to share with YouTube, because I'm sure someone else will be taking this engine apart at some point and just wondering what's behind here, how does this work, can I just undo that, those kind of questions. And maybe if my videos help you in your build or destruction of your car, then great. So starting with should we start with the timing cover? Oh, I don't know which order to do this in. Yeah, let's start with the timing cover. So this is already loose on mine. I actually put a, what is that, 32 mil? Can't remember now. Whoa. It's this biggest one I've got anyway. What is that? 32 mil seems to fit it. It doesn't really want to go on, but it was enough anyway. And then just got my impact gun and that just, get off now. That just spins off and drops on the floor. Then this jobby here, just trying to wobble it off without wobbling the engine too much. There we go, just pulls off. It's got a locating Woodruff key type thing there. Stick them over there, out the way. So with those off, I can't remember. I need to look back at my photos for when I dismantled this the first time. I've got various lengths of long bolts, and I know there's various other things attached to the bottom of this engine. There's the alternator mount somewhere. There's maybe something this side or that side. I can't remember exactly. Obviously the water pump's got its own fixings, but obviously I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 maybe holes, and I've only got 4 bolts here. I know what the nuts up here are for. Obviously when the heads are on, they're on these studs here, and there's 6 studs going across the top. So that's the 6 nuts that are on the desk over there. Right now, off the top of my head, I can't remember where these particularly go. I know they go into some of these. I'll need to look back at my photos and work out whether that one goes there. I can't remember is what I'm trying to say. You will then also, from the sump sandwich side of things, need to remove these 6 bolts that are going, obviously the engine's upside down, so they're going up into the timing cover. So there's those 6, just pop them there, pop that socket over there. So with all of that off, this should then just slide off as it does. Oh, there's not a lot to that really. We're going to replace the seal, replace the water pump on there. So because the engine's upside down at the minute, actually, I'll do the sump removal and the sump sandwich, and then we'll come and have a look at the timing and have a play with that just for fun. So let's take the sump off now. Obviously all my bolts are loose. I'm missing one. It was snapped years ago and replaced with a non-genuine one. I'm actually going to replace all these anyway. we'll come to that later. That was done years ago as well, and I'm looking to rectify that while I do all of this exploration work. But yeah, they're quite weak bolts. They don't need to be particularly strong because you're only going into aluminium, so they're not high tensile or anything like that. You don't need to torque them up much. But after years and years of sitting, they seize in. These ones here, they were an absolute nightmare. Hence years ago. Can't remember why I was trying to take this off years ago, but I started and I think I got 2 undone, and then the third one snapped, and I just thought, nope, just going to pull out all these sump bolts. They're all the same length apart from along here. You can't mix them up. You can see these ones are the short ones. They go into just sort of a short sort of block of metal in the casting, and then these ones go into a longer block, so you can tell they're going to be the longer ones. Right, that's all those out. So those are the sump bolts. Just pop them in a pile there, so you can then lift your sump off. So there would be a gasket here. I've got a much better sump than this, which I'm going to paint up like new, and I've got a new gasket, so I'm not particularly fussed about that. You can then see whatever this, that's a bit bent out of shape, that. It should be like that. Don't know how that got bent. Yeah, this is your pickup for your oil. These some sort of baffles, is that what they're called? Anyway, they're the same style of bolt. So I think these are all the same length apart from 4, if I remember rightly. We'll find out along the way. So they're all the same length. Yeah. 2 short ones across the back. They're not going to stay there, are they? Not a chance. Let's build a little pile on the floor there. Yeah, 2 short ones there at the back and 2 short ones at the front. Oops, come here. Yeah, that's your sump baffle bolts. I think that's what it's called. Obviously, I've had all this off and cleaned it up just so I didn't get covered in oil while I was making this video. Normally this would be covered. Let's just pop that with the sump for now. And then we can undo. I'm just saying it like you just undo these. Yours might not be as stubborn as mine. They're obviously all lovely and loose now. Obviously have to address that issue. Oh, I put heat on them. I left them to soak for 2 days. In the end, it was a kind of a mixture of all heat and soaking and the impact gun, but on its like screw function. You've got 1, 2, 3, but you've got this screw function. So I just popped it on that, which is really, really weak impact. And I also used quite a long extension just to even more reduce the impact, just so that it was getting that vibration to hopefully knock the corrosion loose, but not putting any torque on the top of these heads. And I still noticed when I did finally get them to move, I think that's one of them. You probably can't see it on camera. It started to deform the head. It started to twist it, even with that weak amount of impact. So that's trash. That needs throwing in the bin. I'm going to have to source new ones of these. I'm not going to be able to find these, I don't think, and I don't particularly want to replace them with these. This is a UNC thread. Can't remember what size it is. You can see all the thread locker and old corrosion in there. I'm going to replace them with newer ones and then grip washers, because again, I probably won't be able to get this flanged grip head, but I can substitute that with grip washers. Oh, this earth, by the way, I think it's on that one or that one. I've got a photo somewhere. Probably doesn't matter because it would probably reach to the chassis, but that needs putting back on when you put it back together. Let's put that with the bolts that it came off. Anyway, then this will lift off, and underneath is a gasket. Mine, I think, has a later uprated gasket. I do have a replacement gasket kit, but it came with a paper gasket, which seems a bit stupid to replace, because I think that one's probably much better quality. So now we can see the oil send and return, send, pick up, whatever, you know what I mean. Andy's going to come round, and with his guidance, we are just going to pop out, I think it's A1 that I noticed in the last video it had some damage. We just want to absolutely rule out any chance that that's anything to do with a broken ring or anything like that, that it would be stupid not to check while I've got the engine here on a stand. It's really easy to work on. If there are any issues, we can address them now. But the big issue at the moment is I have this snapped bolt, and judging by how difficult they were to get out even when they weren't snapped, that is going to be properly seized in there. I think the plan, if I can, and I'm going to do a practice on one of the bolts, that one that's all twisted up I showed you before, I'm going to use that as a sacrificial bolt to test whether I can weld a nut onto this. I'm sure I can. And then if it works on the vise, I'm going to weld. I've got a nut already ready. I don't think it was the right thread, but I managed to make it fit. Doesn't really matter, it's getting welded on. So that's going to be screwed onto there. Hopefully put a big blob of weld on there. Hopefully the heat then, maybe with that gentle impact gone again, will just rattle that out. Here's hoping. That was massively unsuccessful. I spent all afternoon trying to weld a nut onto that stump, what was sticking out of there. I tried welding a washer and different types of nuts and all sorts. Basically, I don't know how to weld, so that's probably what was going on. Maybe there's some scientific reason. I don't know. I don't care. I got bored, and I realised if I line up the sump sandwich plate, this goes right through the block here, so I can just drill out the old bolt that was stuck in there. It's a 5/16 hole, and I'll just go right the way through and put a nut on here. Obviously, I'll make sure this is all sealed up with washers. So it'll be doing the compressing the gasket thing. So I'm happy with that. That's that problem solved, hopefully, unless once I start the engine up, oil comes gushing out of here. In which case, we'll all have a laugh at my expense, won't we? Yes. When I can't see it being a problem, I've filed this smooth so there's no burrs or anything sticking out. And we've got plenty of block either side. So I think that'll be fine. Let's move on to other things. Let's not drop stuff down in the engine. That's the plan as well. Get a longer extension. Okay, so that shorter one and a longer one. I sort of carried on undoing things. So just to recap, these two came out of here. They are the same length, but actually there was a longer one on this one, but you can tell because of the casting. So that's easy. You can't mess those up. So they now can go down in line with those. I did just take these two short ones out of here and here off this splash plate, which is now loose. I took these two out the back, just undone this one, and I'm just making a note. It's got a little cradle thing. I don't know why particularly. It's kind of the same as this side, but for some reason they've put a thing there. You figure that out, I don't know. Let's pop that one there on this side. So I think that's everything loose. Obviously I'm going to replace these gaskets anyway, but I've just wrecked that one. Great. So that's that side. I don't think I could have done it without wrecking the gasket, to be honest. Let's get this plate out of the way, check I'm not going to drop anything. So that's that splash plate. I just gave that a gentle tap. Actually just tapped it very gently on that casting, and that has lifted off. So now I'm hoping, but I don't know, that will just wiggle out. Can't imagine there's anything. No, I was right. I was going to say I can't imagine there's anything holding that in there apart from an O-ring. Right, so that could just go this side. Hello, crankshaft. So obviously that one has left its gasket, but it's knackered again as well. I'll replace those. I'm a bit concerned that the bottom end gasket pack that I've bought is all paper, and these are the upgraded later, I don't know what this material's called. I'm going to say plastic, but it's not plastic. Anyway, I need to get that off. We'll do that later. Just before I knock off for tonight, I thought I'd just turn the engine the right way up, and I'll just that way. I'll just spin the timing just for reference. You can see how it all goes together. I've just temporarily fixed these with a little E-clip and a washer onto here. The tensioner's not at tension, it's in its untensioned state at the moment, or rather the chain's at its untensioned state. I'm not going to talk about the tensioner anymore in this video. I covered that in my last video in depth, much to the annoyance of someone in the comments, by the way. They were very bored. Oh well. Yeah, but at least these can now rotate, and you can just see the direction of travel that the chain makes while it's doing its timing thing. What else was I going to say? Forgot. Oh, that was it. I cocked up here, by the way. I've had all this off, and I will be taking it all off again after I've filmed this bit. These guides for the chain are set at a very specific point, and that's all done when the engine's, well, they're set at a specific point so that they're in the correct position when the engine is timed up and at tension. And obviously I can't do that until the heads are on. So it's a good idea not to move these guides. There's one there. Where's the other one? There. And one there. It's a good idea not to move those unless you need to. I didn't need to, but I did because I didn't know that. That then means you've got two options. One, you need to put the heads back on, time it all up, make sure everything's at tension, and get these put in a position. I think the general thing is so they're like touching but not touching, something like that. Or you can spend a lot of money and get yourself this is a replica of the official Jaguar tool that hopefully, I haven't used it yet, so I'm assuming it works. It fits over here, and then something to do with the way these rest on some dowels on the back side of that tool. You can then position these in the factory spec and then tighten them all up tight and then put everything back together. And when it's all at tension, everything should be where it's supposed to be. Over here on the bench, I have a scrap head that I bought. Because I don't know what I'm doing, I wanted a chance to practice on a head that I don't care about. As you can see, I've removed some valves from this. Removing valves like I said, I've not done this before. This is all new to me, but according to the internet, there's kind of two general ways of removing the valves. Removing the valves seems quite simple. It's putting the buggers back in that seems to be immensely fiddly, which leads me on to why I decided to go down the route of using a press, which most mechanics will be listening to that going, why on earth would you need a press to remove valves? And I'll explain why they're saying that, and then I'll explain why I decided to go down the press route. So the valves, this is, what's this? This is a intake valve. Actually, I haven't taken the valve out. I left the valve in, didn't I? There we go. Whoa. So that is the components for an intake valve. You've got these two little bits here. I keep referring to these throughout this video as many things. I think they're actually called keepers. I don't know what the official term is, but I think keepers is correct. They sit in this top cap, which locates onto this groove here. I'll go through all that later. You'll see it in detail, but there's two springs, an inner and outer. Because this is an inlet, it's got a valve stem seal on it, and there's a little cup at the bottom. So if we focus on an inlet again, so the next one that I haven't removed is this one. The reason I'm choosing an inlet valve to show you the hammer method is because what you need to do is make sure that the valve's not going to move when you whack it with a hammer, because otherwise you'll just be compressing the spring and not actually doing anything useful. So you need to stop the valve, from moving this way. So I'm just going to put a washer there, which is the same depth, roughly, as the gap to the table. And I'm going to trap my finger. Right, that now, the valve can't move, but the spring can. You then get a socket the same size as the top cap and a hammer and give it a damn good blow. And then again, until it, there we go. So basically just, what's the word, delocating everything. So there you can see the keepers have come loose. You can take the cap off. Take your inner and outer spring off. Valve stem seal, valve. That's all lovely. Obviously that's a bit violent, but if you didn't have any tools and you just wanted to remove valves, I guess you could just go along and do that. The reason I did an inlet was, like I said, there's less gap to fill there. If you're doing the exhaust on these, I'd have to find a spacer to fill that gap. If that makes sense? Yes, I think so. So that's not probably the recommended way of doing it. The recommended way of doing it is to use a valve remover tool like this. So this specifically shaped thing, let's just tip it on its side. That locates onto the top of the valve top thing, cap. Is that what that's called? There's a lot of terminology that I don't know with this. And then it's basically a case of getting that lined up there, getting that, where am I filming, lined up on the bottom of the valve. And then it's a bit like a mole wrench. You just compress it. It's a bit fiddly, but if I can just zoom out. Come on. There we go. So that's now compressed. It's a little bit wonky there. I'm not filming very well at all here, am I? But that's located onto there. I think I can just leave that. I can then pull the keepers out with a magnet, maybe? Yes. Might need a little pick as well. Something like that. So I haven't got this set up very well for filming, but if I just get in there, there you go, there's one of the keepers. Other one's probably down the other side. There it is. So I could have pulled them out with the pick. So now I can take the pressure off and we're back to everything being loose again. The thing I don't like, one thing I don't like about this is there's no sort of gradual movement. It's all very sudden, especially letting it off. Ooh, there we go. Anyway, that's that. So Pop that back on. Oops. Pick out the way. Got various bits here. Like I said, this is a scrap head, so I'm not bothered about mixing stuff up. So with all that removed, we can just pop the valve out. So there's an exhaust valve done. Let me just wipe my hands. Now, that's okay for removing. As you can see, it was a bit of a faff with that, and it was a bit violent doing the hammer method. Neither of them were ideal. I've got my little bottom plate there. That's just welded on there. I'll just leave that alone. But the real problem starts when you try and put it back together, because let's just for fun try and put this one back together. So we've got exhaust valve. Let's pop the valve through first, shall we? Right, pop the exhaust valve back in. Right, managed to get the valve back in, and I'm holding it with the bottom part of this tool. So now I think I'm just gonna compress from the top, just to make life easier for myself. So kind of set up there. Jeez, that was ungainly. Right, so there's our spring compressed. And now if I just zoom in, whoops, that wasn't zoom in, I pressed the wrong button. There we go. The aim now is to, whilst this is wobbling about, obviously I didn't get it quite central, but if I had, I still wouldn't really want to let go with this tool. So I'd kind of have to find some way of holding that tool, holding it all central, because you can see when I let go, it wants to kind of fall off to the side, and then get two tiny little keepers in, located on those ribs, and then release everything in a slow manner whilst everything stays in place. It's just utter nonsense. So I'm just going to release that. And you can see how quickly it's going to release. Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of experts that do this all day, every day, and they're just laughing their heads off at me right now, going, well, it's just simple. You're doing it all wrong. But I don't like it. I think I can find a better way for me, not a better way to do it, but a better way for me to do the removal and reinstallation, that's the word I'm looking for, of the valves on this head. Not this head, because this is a scrap head. And actually, I'm saying I think I filmed this after doing it, and I did find a better way. So I'm going to move over now to that part of the video where I'm messing about, experimenting with the press. Right, finished that. Took way longer than I'd like to have spent part of my life sticking washers onto a bit of MDF, but hopefully that's going to do the job. I left a bit of space at the sides so that I could maybe try and fix it on there. What I've come up with is I had a load of springs I bought in a job lot off eBay years ago. Of course, none of them are the right size, so I've tried to kind of stretch them out so that they will fit this purpose. So obviously this is a scrap head, before anyone starts freaking out that I'm damaging it, because obviously when I do this properly on my head, I will need to put something here to make sure that this doesn't damage the what is it? It's where the cam holder, come on, get in the hole, there we go, yeah, where the cam holder mates up, metal to metal surface. Which one was I going for? That one, I'll do. So something like that, and then same at the other end. Let's make life easier. I managed to stretch this one out slightly more. It's kind of nerve-wracking stretching springs out on the vise. You're kind of waiting for them to pop out and attack your face. Let's put it on the top first and use gravity, shall we? Is that in the hole? Yes. That's that one. Probably don't need two on this end. It's just I didn't have any way of fixing it centrally. Like I'm saying centrally. The other one wasn't in the middle either, but seemed to work. Anyway, that now means you can't see because I can't zoom out enough, but I can pick that up and that bit of MDF stays in place. So let's take it over to the press and let's remove a valve or two and then put them back in and just check how everything's going to work before tackling the same sort of procedure on my actual heads. Right, so I'm set up on the vise. Let's just back that off a little bit actually, just so you can see. So my general plan, if I have one, obviously it can rest now straight onto the vise because it's protected underneath with the MDF that's running from there to there. Made myself a very professional stack here, which is just making sure it's level so that when I press down, when I press down it'll tilt up anyway if it wasn't level, but I'd rather it didn't move about. Obviously that just increases the risk of this slipping off the spring. I was concerned that cutting quite such a large section out of this piece would cause problems with it, maybe kind of, you know, doing that and then things going twang quite violently, because I bet these springs, in fact, oh, I've got that. I've actually loaded it in the rear of my brand new shiny press. But once it's under pressure, we can go around and have a look and see how much pressure it's taking to push down these springs. To be honest, it doesn't feel like anything at all, so I doubt it's very much. Anyway, yeah, that's my basic plan, is get this all lined up. Wind this down? Pump it down? I don't know what the terminology is, but press it down. There we go. So we've got a perch there. Just zoom in and then just compress the spring. Obviously make sure this is on at this point before I go any further. So there we can see we're just exposing. There you go. So I'm at full spring compression there. That's the maximum I can get. The valve shouldn't have moved down now because it should be pressing up against those washers and then the MDF. So there's my two collets. Got a selection of tools down here. I think for removal I'll just go with straight pick and magnet. Where's the camera? There's one. I've noticed as well, by the way, the exhaust valves, which are bigger, have, is it 2 or 3 grooves? I'm going to say 2 grooves, 3 ribs. There you go. And the inlet valves, which are a bit smaller, just have a single. So there's the other collet. Let's just pop them there where I can knock them off and they can disappear. I don't really care. Like I said, this is a scrap head. But we're now going to release the spring gently. That's it. We'll just stop the press there. So that's now ready to be dismantled. Obviously you can take off the whatever that's called, the bit that holds the top of the spring in. We've got the inner and outer springs. In fact, let's move all this. Let's put it on this lovely, I don't know where to put stuff. I need a system. Let's just put them there on this block. I'm normally a bit more organised than this. Oh, there's also, if I just zoom in, there's also a little cup on the bottom here that the spring sits in. What I will do when I do my head is I'll run along, undo all of them, then take it to the bench, leave it on its side, take that bit of MDF off, and then I can take the valves out and bag them all up in their respective bags. Just get that lined up. Try not to trap my finger in the top. There we go. Let's give that a good shake now before it's under any sort of pressure. Check out it's not going to slip off, hopefully. That's, zoom in. That's far enough. I don't need to go any further. Maybe I'll just pop that one off. So yeah, these inlet, if I can get it to focus, inlet collets, get rid of that oil. I've just got one rib. So when I said the others had 2 grooves, I guess it's the ribs. Yeah, because the grooves are in the top of the valve. So we've got 3 grooves on each exhaust valve and 1 groove on each inlet valve and corresponding ribs. Fascinating stuff. Yes. Where is it? Come here. There we go. So that's the 2 collets. So we can't mix. So I'm just going to mix the springs up. I don't know if it matters. I'll have to look into that. I don't think it does. Anyway, let's just release the pressure. Oh, that was it. I was going to see how much force was being used to press that down. So that's it. I'm not pressing the compressed spring down there, but let's get up and just have a look, see if it's even registering a reading. Nope, nothing. I didn't think it would. Okay. That was a pointless excursion around the front of the press, wasn't it? What was I doing? Right, releasing the pressure. Because this is a, there we go, an inlet. There you can see the inlet valve stem seal. So I'm just gonna, I'm not bothered about damaging these, so I'm just gonna pull that off. Let's set these valves up. So we've got our exhaust one first. So we need our little bottom collar. That's what I'm calling it. Our inner and outer springs. And the little top piece. Make sure that the valve actually goes up through the hole and doesn't foul if I haven't got this lined up quite right. So I'm just going slowly. Yeah, that's fine now. In a previous practice, I didn't have that lined up and it caught on the top head bit. Anyway, also in a previous practice, what I was trying to do is I was winding all the way down like that, trying to get the collets in and fiddling about. What I seem to have figured out seems to work a little bit better is to stop about there. I'm going to have to take my gloves off to do this actually. Need finger dexterity. That's the next day and I'm gonna get on with this. It just happens that I've got the B bank head first. It doesn't really matter which order I do them in. I'm just sorting out my bags. So obviously, well not obviously, because you didn't see me do it, but a while ago when I was playing around with the original valve stem seal remover, valve remover tool, I did successfully remove B1 exhaust valve and then realised I didn't like how it worked for reassembling. So then we'll have B2 inlet and so on and so forth. I like to use freezer bags. I know some people like to use boxes or they make themselves like a board. I've explained that in the last video that I don't like the thought of having stuff out on a board because I'm clumsy and I'm moving stuff about all the time. I'm fairly sure I'd end up knocking a board over. So I'm just going to lay them out in a very OCD order. That's no good, is it? Come on now. There we go. Yesterday I did a bit of experimentation, and I know I said I needed to protect the mating surfaces. So what I've gone for is some Velcro tape. Put 2 layers on, and that seems to be more than enough just to stop the springs from getting anywhere near the mating surface. Right, that's that on there. We'll need our custom valve removal tool. Take this over to the press. Probably going to just film this and then speed it up. And also it means I can go put telly on over there and listen to some other YouTubers destroy their cars. I like watching Derek from Vice Grip Garage. He's good. If you like watching people destroy cars, then watch my channel. But if you like watching people actually put their cars back together and kind of quickly, not OCD. He doesn't do OCD. I think shiny stuff scares him. He says that quite frequently. But yeah, well worth a watch. It's also mental. He'll just drive and buy a car sight unseen from, like, I mean, in America, you guys drive massive distances. Anything over 100 miles freaks us Brits out. But he'll drive, like, 2,000 miles back or 900 miles back with this car that he's literally just got started after 40 years of it being sat in some guy's field. It's just mental. And we can't do that in the UK anyway, because there's, like, rules and stuff. I don't know how it works in the US. But if I was to go... I mean, I know where there's a Jaguar XJS actually in a barn. It's not a barn find, it's just a barn allowed to look at it. But I could go up there and I could probably get it started, maybe. That's not even remotely on. And then drive it home down the M6. But here, the police would stop you and go, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, the guy in the Sun Daily in Tucson, Arizona.
Paused Derek for a bit. That's them done. That took about 10 minutes, maybe not even that. In fact, I can see exactly how long it took because I can see how long the video has been. Running 20 minutes, 17 minutes, 34. I really need to stop walking into that. Let's just, oh yeah, I put a split pin on it, didn't I? Might delete that later. All right, let's take a seat, tip this on its side. So we're going 1 to 6 this way. So this is B1, oops, not pointing the camera even remotely there. Just pulled out B1 inlet. So we'll just go and find its bag. Be near the back. B1 inlet. And there's its valve. Now I can double tie them so that they don't have any chance of opening. We want B1 exhaust. There's those. Right, B2. These B2 exhaust, B2 inlet. B2 exhaust, B2 inlet. So that is one head now, minus any parts, I think. I can take this protective stuff off now. Yeah, that's now ready for cleaning. Well, that'll do for this video. I actually filmed this bolt removal nonsense at the end of everything else, so I'll stick this at the end of the video. I've got a lot of tidying up to do because, David, you notice when you get stressed with a job, your garage just gets messier and messier. That's what's happened here. I'll see you next video where I've got to lap the valves. That's another new thing for me, so join me for that voyage of discovery. Hopefully I won't mess anything up. And then put the heads back together, camshafts on, all that stuff. And yet another new thing, check the valve clearances, the feeder gauge and science and measurements and stuff. See you then. Bye.